This is Fox News.
Lawrence County depends on WDXE News, on the air since 1951. This is The Legend, 105.3, 95. WDXE.
And we made it back again to Bulletproof Estate Planning with Stan Pierchoski. How are you, bud?
Good. I'm not hearing you in my headset.
You're not hearing me?
I'm not hearing you.
Not hearing me. Well, I don't know why that is.
Well, as long as you're broadcast, I mean, I can hear you.
Yeah.
I'm just not hearing you through the headset. But that's okay.
That's
Good morning.
interesting.
Good
Well,
morning.
good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. That's what I meant to say first. Sorry about that. Hope you folks had a happy Mother's Day last Sunday.
Oh, yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. The mothers, I'm sure, all earned it, whatever they got for a gift. So hopefully it was a good one.
Yes, you can hear you.
Yes, I can hear myself.
Okay. All right. Well, very good.
And,
Well, we are broadcasting.
of course, we love to hear ourselves.
We do. We do.
But yeah, we are, Bulletproof Estate Planning every Friday morning on WDXE 105.3 from 8 to 9.
8 to 9 on Friday mornings.
I often say this is one of the fastest hours of my week.
Well, it does go by fast.
It does. And I enjoy doing it a lot.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk about some things today, some not exactly estate planning, but I can tie it to it. But just remember, this is an interactive show, call-in talk radio. The number is 931, of course, 766-9393. Call that. You can share a question or some real-life experiences. But first thing I want to talk about is something real briefly. I had some folks come in and say, hey, I want to do a will, but I want to just do a simple will. Or I say, I like the idea of a trust, but I just want to do a simple trust.
Yes.
I said, well, tell me what you mean by simple. It's like, well, I don't have much.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it all to my one son or something like that.
Right.
And so I explain, and then they sort of say, can that be done then cheaper? Can it be less cost because it's just simple? And
Right.
and the answer is, when you hire me to do a will or a trust, I probably spend most of my time making the will or the trust a valid instrument that would be enforceable when it's time to be enforceable, right? And so the trust or the will doesn't really know what you have property-wise.
Right.
So if you have a will that says, I leave everything to my son, like this person mentioned, and the person has $100 to their name, and I write the will to do that, did I not write the exact same will if the person had $5 million and said, I leave everything to my son?
Yeah.
So really, it's not simple because you're not leaving much.
Right.
It's the leaving it period that has to be done right.
Yes.
The quantity, it's the quality of the thing, not the quantity. So, but they can be more. Some wills can be more simple than others because some people will put like testamentary trust into the will, which makes them a little more complicated. But same thing with a trust. The trust does not know what's in it.
Yeah.
With the exception of sometimes we have specific bequests that say, I'm going to leave this parcel of land over here to this child.
Yes.
And so it makes reference to things that are in the trust. But basically, when you say I leave everything in the trust, a third to my 3 children, the trust doesn't know what it is, what's in there. The way you know what's in there is the asset is titled to the trust. If
Right.
it's titled to the trust, it's in the trust, and then trust controls its distribution. So
Right.
Anyway, that was just something that came up a couple times, started bringing up.
Yeah. Okay.
Before I move into the next topic, I want to remind everybody that my seminar is tomorrow.
I was going to say it's tomorrow.
And it is here. We are in sight of it, except for the wall that's in the way. But it's right here at WLX. Tomorrow is the 17th, and that is at 10 o'clock in the morning. We call it Wills, Trust, and the Nursing Home. And that's what we talk about.
Yeah.
Okay? We talk about a little bit about wills. We do like a fresher cover of what a will is, what a trust is. Then we move into the solution to this problem of how not to go broke in long-term care.
Yeah.
And that's the nursing home part of it. And we discuss our asset protection trust mostly, some of the crisis planning tools, but we don't touch on those too deeply. But you'll hear a lot of things you may not even know were available.
Yeah.
And have an open mind. Just because you haven't heard about it doesn't mean doesn't exist. So don't be closed-minded about it and say, well, I had a gentleman say, I don't know how that can be. I've never heard about it.
Right.
Well, there could be something out there you hadn't heard about.
Right. Exactly.
So, but they're Graham's solutions, so definitely be open-minded. They can be very beneficial. And so, anyway, we do that at 10 o'clock. I think the rain's going to be out here in the middle of the night, morning hours, so it might still be wet, but should be pretty good weather by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I think so.
And so, we do that. I try to start right at 10. If I look out and see several people in the parking lot, we're going to have a big crowd tomorrow.
Yeah.
So If I see some cars trying to get parked, I'll wait a few minutes after 10, pretty
Sure.
much as close to 10 as we can.
Sure.
And again, it's the day before, right? It's tomorrow. If you want to come, we like to have an RSVP because we like to get the tables and chairs out so when you come, everything's all ready, right?
Right.
And we usually do more tables and chairs than who we are expecting, just because we always have walk-ins. So, but up until now, we've asked people to call an RSVP and give us a head count. And that's for that very reason, so we can put out tables and chairs. And so Miss Tammy makes muffins, and we have like a light refreshment. And when we, apparently it's a worst thing that could happen is to make light refreshments and run out. So,
Yeah.
so I guess that's the worst that can happen.
That's right.
I don't want to go there.
That's right.
But but if you decide, like if you hear this and today and you say, you know what, I think we're going to go to that. If you don't call, don't worry about it. The RSVP thing is kind of loose. Just walk in. It happens every single time. Walk-ins are welcome. Some people at the last second won't be able to make it. So it really is a wash. But it's not a big deal. It's not, don't come to the door and say, oh, can I please come in? I didn't RSVP. It's not like that.
Right.
It's pretty, like I said, we just like to know the head count so we can prepare for it. But we got a good head count for this one. So also, we got a good place to do it with plenty of room. So.
Awesome.
And I think I'm going to bring my TV rather than use the one on the wall. I've been struggling with that concept because you guys now have a nice big TV on the wall, but it's another 15 feet back from where I normally put mine. And I'm going to have people pretty far back in the room as it is.
Sure.
So I'm going to have to be loud. One of these days I'm going to have to get some kind of PA thing, but I can be loud. I kind of walk around the crowd when I'm doing my talking. So, hey, if you're interested in anything we talk about or anything that's estate planning, or if you're, up there in years a little bit and you have a concern about long-term care, which most people do.
Yes.
We talk about that. There's a solution to this problem. People say every day to me, so-and-so in Gertrude's in a nursing home, and they're just going to get everything. There's nothing we can do. I talked to Joe down the street, and Joe's always got the inside line, right? And he knows how things work, and he says, there's nothing you can do. They're just going to get it all. And that's not the way it works. There's options. There's quite a few options, really.
Yes.
There's ways to preserve wealth even if you're already in care.
Yeah.
So, go ahead and come to it. Call my office at Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law at 931-363-7222, and maybe just give Miss Alex, Miss Tammy, or Miss Courtney a shout and say you're planning on coming. If not, just pop in. Come see me at the end. You want to talk to me about something, that's fine. Because at the end of our seminars, we have my favorite part, which is Q&A, questions. So I tell people, if you have a question, bring it with you. If you develop one during the presentation, write it down, because when I get done, I open the floor up for questions, and my policy is I will stay there at your facility here at the WLX radio station until the last question is asked. And so don't have a question on your mind and leave the seminar without getting an answer to it.
Right.
I offer the time freely, so take advantage of it. It's okay. I actually love the Q&A part. That's my favorite.
Right.
It gives me an opportunity to understand where people are and what their life experiences have been in this area and stuff. So sometimes some people bring something up I hadn't heard of.
Yeah.
And I try to think, okay, what if one of my clients, if that happens to one of my clients, what's the solution to that? It's helpful to me. So by all means, I think you'll enjoy it. We get great reviews for it. You said some people talk to you about it. I know. When I do WLX over there, they responded on that show.
Sure.
But anyway, come on. So I'll bring that up again at the end of our hour here. But what I want to talk about is kind of, I guess I'd have a hard time tying into estate planning, except I can make a tie in that it can really damage your estate if this happens to you.
Okay.
Now, I'm talking about people, and so if you're listening to me and you're elderly,
right,
or I'm elderly, I'm in advanced years. If you're retired, and you're living off what you've accumulated and stuff like that, there are certain people out there that are trying to get at your money. Okay, I'm talking about scams, and I want to bring up one that a couple of my clients have brought to me, and actually happened within my own family.
Right.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about this because, I don't know how they do it, but they're somehow extremely convincing. When you hear what they say to people, you think to yourself, nobody's going to fall for that. There's no way that can be true, right?
Yeah.
But people do. So what that tells me is a couple things. One, they're very convincing.
Yes.
because they're definitely master salesmen, and otherwise they wouldn't be doing this, right?
Right.
Second of all, you know, like like I said, it happened in my own family, and some of the family members got mad and yelled at her, and it's like, well, that may not be the solution, because you have to proceed from the premise that she's not thinking right.
Yeah.
And if you're not thinking right, saying how could you fall for that is not helping. I mean, it's certainly not going to solve anything, because she doesn't. I mean, they don't know, or they.
Right.
It makes sense to them, because when you're advanced. And you know, when you have some sort of something going on in your brain,
Oh, yeah.
and you're not thinking straight, you're just not, you know.
Yeah.
And so we have to deal with that. But people. So I want to talk about this scam that's out there, and I want to give you some fundamentals to think about, or to help your parents or your loved ones that might get scammed on stuff like this. Because the case I'm talking about definitely dodged a bullet. I mean, it was like moments away from a transaction. And it got,
Oh, wow.
and finally it got thwarted. But
Wow.
don't know that it will happen again. I mean, if you're gullible once,
Yeah.
you know, what's to happen? So, but the story was very remarkable, in my opinion. Very remarkable for me to wrap my head around it, but it's out there. It's definitely out there. And several people brought it to me, and I even actually Googled some of the facts, and other people have put on there that this has happened to them everywhere, not just right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you don't know where these people are. I mean, heck, they're in India or something, or some, you know, they're not even here.
Yeah.
Usually. So, anyway, usually people will get a call, and it'll be something like this. And, you know, I have a client, and I know they live here in Lawrenceburg, and I'm not going to name names, but if you're listening, please listen. Okay, please listen. They get a call and say, you know, they want a prize, or there's $1.5 million in an offshore bank account in your name, or you won a prize. You got, you know, win this prize for $1.5 million, and of course, that's attractive. I can see the bait, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you somebody that is of limited means, maybe. You know, you want to believe it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would
so-
want to believe it.
And so, but most people right off the bat is like, well, I don't, you know, well, why is it in my name or something? They say, well, you know, are you Jane Doe? You know, and they say, yes, and I am. I said, well, do you, you know, I'm sure it's you. I say, well, there's several Jane Does in town. I mean, it's not an uncommon name. How do I know it's me?
Right.
Well, do you have a son-in-law named Joe, and is he married to Mary? Yeah. Yes, I do. You know. Now, where would they get that? I mean,
Yeah, where
it's
would they
all
get
over
that?
Facebook. I mean,
Yeah.
if you go to Facebook, you can find out so much. Anyway,
Yeah.
so they say that now the person's yes, I do,
Yeah.
and it's like that's now it's starting to sound a little more real to
A little
person,
convincing.
right?
Yeah.
Then they if you're still paying attention to them, then they'll say, look, there's a problem with this money because it was targeted or red flagged for being money laundered.
Yeah.
And you've been implicated or charged with something to do with this from an investment standpoint, that you're involved in this money laundering. And I know, you know, the person starts to get scared now. And then they say, now I know you weren't involved, and I've been hired to represent you and to take care of you, and I've got enough evidence to show you weren't involved. You know, and then they'll say, this particular one, the person actually recorded it. The person said, I'm with the Department of Commerce. Now, what the Department of Commerce has to do with it.
Department of Commerce.
Has anything to
Sounds
do with it.
official.
Anyway, and we have another person here from Homeland Security. And, you know, to prove to you we're telling the truth, we're going to give you our badge numbers.
Oh my gosh.
And it wouldn't surprise me if they said number 1 and number 2.
Yeah.
But anyway, I laugh. I shouldn't, because
Yeah.
it's serious business.
Yeah, it is
And I
serious.
know, but anyway, here's our badge numbers. And then they lay that kind of stuff on kind of thick. You know, now it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, there is a warrant out for your arrest on this embezzlement charge. And I know you didn't do it, and I'm hired to help you. Then they come up and say, well, in order to clear you of these charges, you know, we're going to need a certain amount of money. And it's pretty healthy, but what they asked for. In this particular case, they said, you know, you need to go to, you need to get $30,000.
Oh my Lord.
Now, the person says, do you have a, you know, well, this is what they say, you have money in the bank, right? Well, yeah, I do. I said, well, do you have bank accounts with Wells Fargo, or U.S. Bank, Bank of America, PNC,
Yeah.
CBNS? And they like name 8 of them, and the person says, oh, no, I just have it with Wells Fargo and Bank of America.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what have we just done? Okay.
You told her where your bank
I mean,
is.
we didn't know that before, but now we do,
Yeah.
because you had this blanket question. And so they know that, and then they say, well, then here's something that surprised me. They said, "Do you have a cell phone?" And this person said, "No, I don't have one." He said, "Okay, I want you to go down to the iPhone store in such and such town and get an iPhone. When you get an iPhone, make sure the person loads it up with something called a What app. I don't know what the hell that is, but if you listen to me, you might. It's called What app. And What app is what I'm told from one of my sons that's a little more techie than me.
Yeah.
Said a What app is a way to communicate with people without it being a phone. So here's how he described it, and this makes sense to me. I don't know how it works, but my son uses an iPad a lot in his job. He's in construction and he keeps track of stuff, but an iPad is not a phone, but it goes online, right? You can turn that iPad into a phone and talk to somebody and communicate with them through the iPad with this What app.
Interesting.
So, and it's not a phone call, so you can't really. It's like it's going to be super private. You can't do anything about it. You can't track it or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and to my surprise, this person did that. The very next morning, they go down to and they bought it. And that's the part where you start shaking your head and say, why would you do that? But anyway, they did, and that tells me this was very convincing. But see, now it's more than convincing. Now they're scared. They think there's something that would scare anybody, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to be there to arrest you at 5 o'clock if we don't get this resolved.
Yeah.
Okay, so. They go and get that. Then they tell them to go to the bank, and she goes to the bank, and they tell them to take this thing. They tell them exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Here's your next steps. Go to the bank. Tell them you want to take out $30,000. And the person says, "Well, what am I going to tell them why I want $30,000?" He says, "Well, tell them you're going to help your son and your son-in-law and your daughter. They're starting a business, or tell them you're buying windows or something."
Yeah.
And the person went in the bank and said exactly that. And now they've told the person to lie, and the person has lied for them. And now you're thinking, how can that be? Well, it happened more than once. I've talked to people that are dealing with it. And so they do that. And then now, in this particular case that I'm talking about, the one that was a close call, the people at the bank spotted it. And they said, gee, Miss Jane Doe, that just doesn't sound right. I mean, that's not the way, and because they wanted cash. $30,000 in cash.
Oh, really?
Have you ever seen $30,000 in cash?
Oh. So
Anyway,
they wanted it in cash.
Of course they did. And they also said something like, no, don't tell anybody you're doing this because that can taint the criminal procedure that we're doing. So, okay. Don't tell anybody.
Oh my gosh.
And so they're trying to get this cash, and they couldn't. They balked at it because they do fraud prevention. So you can't say, "This is my account." I went out. They're allowed to interject fraud protection because that's what they do. Because they can get stuck with it if it is fraud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they questioned her, and they didn't get the good answer. And she made some comments about other things that weren't true that they knew weren't true. Okay, like this person's spouse had passed away about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
But they were saying something like, "Oh, my husband just passed away a week ago." Well, it was her bank, and they knew her, and so they knew that wasn't true, and all their alarm bells were going off. So basically, they denied her the withdrawal. But it was a bank that had a branch, and they knew she had an account at the other one. And so there's something like, after that, somebody watched her, and she picks up the phone, and she's talking on the phone to somebody, and they can't hear what she's saying. But this person, after talking to this person, they told him what about another bank? She goes, "Oh yeah, I have another bank." And, okay, go to that one. But this time, what they wanted them to do was talk on the What Up app, but put your phone in your purse and leave it on, so I can hear what the bank is saying to you. Okay.
Wow.
And so
Holy cow.
goes to the other bank, but fortunately for this bank, called the other branch and said, "Listen, this is one of our patrons, and there's something wrong. There's a giant red flag here, and I don't know if she's going to come over there and try to take some money out, but we probably shouldn't do it until we know a little bit more about the transaction, because it's a lot of money, and it's in cash, and she's she's 80 in her 80s. Anyway, and she did. She went to that other bank, and that got thwarted. Okay, and she had talked to the person on the phone a couple times, and finally there was some discussion at one of the banks that, instead of cash, why don't we make this a cashier's check? And she didn't know what to say, so she goes in the restroom and asks the person, well, they said they'll give me a cashier's check, and they're saying, no, we don't want that, because of course a cashier's check has to be made out to somebody.
Right.
It's good as gold, it's cash, but it's traceable.
Yeah.
They said, no, tell them it has to be cash or something like that, and so they did. Anyway, by this time, some of the family got alerted, because the people at the bank actually somehow got a hold of the daughter or something like that.
Right.
And so they went, and the person pretty much gave up at that point, and they said, we're going to call you later on this afternoon and talk about what we're going to do tomorrow, because if we don't get these, we don't get this done, these charges are breathing down your neck. And so when they get home and she's with her family members, and the guy calls at 3 o'clock, and the family member answered it, and probably if they could have reached through the phone and strangled him, they would have.
I'm sure.
They probably strangled him with words.
Yeah.
Now, that's definitely going to be thwarted. They're not going to contact her again. I mean, now, my concern is they're almost busted, and they're not going to expose themselves, so they're not going to continue with that.
Right.
But they almost had it. They were close.
Yeah.
So are they going to come back in 2 weeks with a whole different voice and a different story? And is she get her to fall for it this time, and maybe now speed it up so that anyway? Because if they'd got that money, and they'd have known she had more money, they'd cleaned her out.
Yeah.
So when I said I can tie it into estate planning, if you want to do estate planning, that's great, but you got to have an estate to plan.
Right.
If something like this happens, and here's the thing that makes me mad, and I don't like to curse, but I'm going to have to struggle to not do so, especially on the radio.
Yeah.
But this is about the lowest form of life I can possibly think of. What a low down, rotten thing to do.
Yeah.
To a person like that.
Yeah.
Widow, recently.
Yeah.
Not thinking straight, definitely vulnerable.
Yeah.
And even there's also
And that's what the scammers look for.
And that's the target audience. And
Yeah.
they also said in there, this is what really got me going. The person, the conversation was recorded, and I was listening to the conversation because they brought it to me. And the person, when they're trying to convince you, they said, I think God got us together. I'm here to protect you. My job is to protect you. I think God has brought us together.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking, you know what? I think God himself, I'm not going to go after that, but God himself has got something in store for that person for making that statement.
Yeah.
How dare you use me?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to be there the day he's reckoning for that, because it is not going to go well for that person.
It's not going to go well for that person.
But if I am there, I'm going to be applauding.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you get a call, here's some of the standard things and they must have been targeting her, because earlier she also got a call where they said something like, "Hey, you bought a refrigerator and you didn't pay for it. You owe $800, and there's a warrant out for your arrest if you don't pay this $800 by 5 o'clock today."
Yeah.
I've heard that one before. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but there's all these scams that are out there. Now, let's get the fundamental principles, and that is, people like the Homeland Security and the Department of Commerce and the IRS and all those people have an extremely strict policy that they do not call people.
That's right.
They will say in their letters, if you get a call from the IRS, it's not us.
That's right. That's
If you get a
exactly
call
right.
from Homeland Security, it's not us. It's a prank. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I don't care how much they try to scare you. Nobody's coming to your door that day. Because think about it. Who has the inside line to this?
Yeah.
And nobody's coming to your door to arrest you. Now, let's go to fundamental principles. Nobody goes to jail over owing money. I mean, we did away with debtors' prisons back in the 15th century, right?
Yeah.
So if you owe money, they don't throw you in jail for that.
Yeah.
That's a civil action that they try to collect.
Yeah.
And they have ways to collect, but
Yeah.
The worst that can happen if you owe money is they levy your bank account and take it. So if somebody threatens you to get arrested and go to jail over money you owe, it's not possible. It's not legally possible, and it's a scam. That's a red flag.
Right.
And again, if somebody tells you you've won this money, but it's going to cost you some money to get at it, and of course the cost is way less than what you're going to get, which makes it look like a bargain. Listen, it's only $30,000 to get somebody says, well, $30,000 is a lot of money. Well, hey, $30,000 to get $1.5 million, man, I'd do that all day long.
Yeah.
Surely you want to do that.
Yeah.
So if you win something and you keep listening to them, which I recommend you don't, but if you do, eventually the request for money is going to come out.
Right.
And it can come out in many forms. I don't even know what they're kind of different all the time.
Yeah.
I heard one where it was in a foreign account, but it took a certain amount of money to get it out of there and get it back to her so she can have the money.
Right.
It wasn't as much money, but still, it was okay. It's off in an account in Belize or Neves, and we got to get it out of there, but there's certain protocols to remove the money from there and certain costs to be paid. And, you give us the money and we'll pay it. I mean, give it to us in cash and we'll pay it,
Yeah.
Cash is another flag. Okay.
Cash is a
Get
big
the money,
flag.
Or take the money and buy gift cards with it. Or, or write us a check or something like, we'll do this for you for $1,000.
Yeah.
So but all I have is a check for $1,500, and I can't change that. So I'm gonna send you this check for $1,500. You just write me a check for $500 for the overage, and
Yeah.
and we'll call it even. Well, you write the check and send it to them, which is a good check. They write the check and send it to you. When you take it to your bank, they say there's nothing here. There's no money here.
Yeah.
The end result is you're out the $500.
Yeah.
And so these people, not only are they low down, good, rotten, thieving,
Scoundrels.
pagan,
Yes.
yeah, whatever. I don't want to say it. Not only are they that, but I hate to give them this credit, but they're smart.
Yeah.
But they're smart in an evil way.
Yeah.
And if you could take the intelligence that they're using here and apply it to something meaningful,
Yeah.
I mean, we could solve a lot of freaking problems,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But no, we got to spend it on this. And think of it this way: if they call 100 people and get one to do something, it was worth it.
Yeah, for them.
Sure, it was. It was lucrative.
Yeah.
And so please. I mean, it breaks my heart.
And they wouldn't keep doing it if they weren't catching some.
No, but
They are catching some,
if they're
unfortunately.
catching them. And I think, I think they called the police on this, but I don't know that they offered much solution because you don't know where the people are. The What app, you can't trace it. They just give you advice. Now, I know over in Giles County, the sheriff's department has a website, and they have a place on there where they post what they call known scams that they know about.
Yeah.
And so, but it's a good idea. But I don't know how many people go there to read it, but.
Yeah.
I don't, but, so I thought I'd bring it up, but I might, I think from now on, every time I hear about one, I'm gonna do it on one radio show or the other.
And you get them on your cell phone and text messaging sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
I get one that tells me I have a toll that I haven't paid all the time. Have you got that one?
Have a what, haven't
A toll, like the Tennessee Department of Transportation, you owe them for a toll that you haven't paid or whatever. And well, as far as I know, don't have any toll roads around here.
I actually got one that was legit.
You did?
But I knew it was, I mean, I was in Miami and they got these toll roads. And they put the things up. Anyway, when they said you owe it, they did show in a letter. And in the letter was a picture of my car.
Yeah. Now the letter.
at the booth.
If you get a letter doing that, that's different.
And it was like an $8.50 toll, and so I paid it. But just saying you owe this toll and pay it, that's the big question. Often when I'm in my office, I'll get an email that says something weird.
Yeah.
Like, hey, thank you, a payment for $499.99 was successful from your banking.
Yeah.
And then you go down there and it's Norton, the Anti's, whatever it is, computer program.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll call Alex over in my office and I'll say, does this look like a scam? And she'll always look at the return email.
Yeah.
And, you pull it up and it's a bunch of letters and numbers.
Yeah.
She goes, no, just delete it.
That's a scam one. Yep.
So, there's a lot of things out there for clues, but you and I and people that are of sound mind see it. There's so many red flags in that story.
Right.
It's not even funny. But the point is this person was hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not bashing the person because it's clear there's a problem. There's a problem. What makes a person swallow all this? I know it's fear, it's good salesmanship on the other person, it's evil.
Yeah.
It's Satan's hand in there, and you got to resist that, and that's tough.
Yeah.
And when you're a vulnerable person, it's even tougher. So if you've got family
They
members
take advantage
that
of people that are naturally trusting.
Yep, and you just have to school them and say, listen, if you don't know who the person is, hang up. Nothing bad's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do to you.
Yeah.
But people say, well, they know all this about my family, so they know where I live. They're not going to do that. First of all, they're usually not from here.
Yeah.
Second of all, they just want the money. If they can't, it's hit and run. If they hit, if there's money there, they'll go for it. If there's not, they drop it like a hot rock and go to the next one.
Go to the next
one. Go to the next one. Then they'll get a live one, maybe get somewhere.
Yeah.
I expect to hear from them again because they were so close. And I think maybe they might say, well, if the family hadn't found out about it.
Yeah.
And this was over the course of like 2.5 days that this went. So maybe next time we do it, we'll have to make the story so that it happens much quicker.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
Very good.
Don't tell people your information. I mean, this person, I have a family member that's just terrible about that. She's on the phone, okay? And you listen to her on the phone and she says, I don't know, maybe she's talking to the utility company,
Yeah.
She's on the phone, she says, oh, I know, I just lost my husband 2 weeks ago, and I'm here all alone, and I've got this big 5,000 square foot house, and and so I'm trying to cut the utilities down a little bit.
Yeah.
And, you know, I went to the bank, down there at the Wells Fargo Bank, and I've got $70,000 in that bank account. And I told them, hey, I don't need to be spending, that's my, I mean, on and on and on. And after 15 minutes, you'd know everything about this
Yeah.
person. And it's like we go to him and say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
We should tape this and play it back to him and say, listen to what you just did.
Yeah.
I don't know how to stop that. Other than duct tape.
Well, it's because some of us have just a trusting nature. You know, we don't think
that's true.
You know, we just don't think about that kind of thing.
And if you're in your advanced years, let's say your 80s, you come from a time when that was commonplace.
Yeah.
Trusted people were commonplace.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they are not now.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost have to take a position to be suspicious of everything.
And you know, we're so connected and exposed to the whole world rather than just our one little community anymore.
That's what I mean. They said the guy they talked to, they said he was Indian, but when I talked to the person who actually talked to him on the phone, said no, it was more of an Italian dialect.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, are they here or are they halfway around the world?
Yeah, you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know.
Now, the thing that concerned me though is they did say, if you get the cash, we'll come and get it. So if we got the cash, we got somebody somewhere that's going to show up. That gets pretty weird.
That does.
So. But I mean, how else are you going to transfer cash? They're not going to take stick it in an envelope.
That was the part that was concerning to me in that story. Is like, how in the world now? They're close enough to try to get the cash.
Now, if they come to the house to get the cash, they're not coming to the house just to get the cash.
Yeah.
They're coming to the house to come in the house and get whatever else they can get.
Yeah.
And they'd have a reason why they need it, and how it's going to keep you out of jail.
No matter.
Anyway, I just felt a need to bring that up. I hope if anybody's heard that, if anybody's had. I wouldn't even mind if somebody's been involved in a scam or they come up with one, write down what the facts were and send it to me.
Well, we got one of our regulars that wants to chime in on it.
I've got the forum of being on the radio. I can help put it out there.
Yeah, let's see if we got see if somebody wants to comment. Hey, good morning. How are you?
He might be interested in a video. If you've heard of Jordan Peterson, he's an internationally known psychologist.
Yes.
He posted a video this week, and he says it's something like things you should never tell anyone if you're over this age. Now, he's talking about outside your, but he even says your neighbors.
Right.
Ask you about your finances or anything, just conversationally say you're comfortable. I didn't watch all of it, but it ties right in with the psychological things people use.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Very, very good.
Yeah, and I think some people just, I don't know, they're proud of what they've done and have, and they like to brag. No, I don't want to say brag, but I guess, just pat themselves on the back and be vocal about it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, somebody's going to use that to your detriment.
Yeah.
And that's a shame because, you're going to be kicking yourself. When actually when we talked to this person, explained to all the red flags and what they're trying to do, they're practically in tears and thinking, now they're thinking, well, how did I fall for it? But they did.
Yeah.
So that tells me they're in mass. But somebody says, oh, I'd never fall for that. I don't know. These people are pretty darn convincing. Pretty darn convincing.
They can be. They sure can be. Well, that's all they do.
That's all they do.
That's all they do.
They know the buttons.
Every day, all day.
I'll bet you those people watch the video that the caller mentioned, so they know what to do or what not to do.
Right.
How to get the information out of people.
Yeah.
I'll bet you sometimes you can give it and not even know you gave it.
That's true. That's true. True. They're very highly skilled at what they do.
Yeah.
And they don't catch everybody, but they don't care.
That's right.
They just go on the next one, just like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hey, I got almost hooked on one. It was one of those emails that came up that said, is this charged to your account? Blah blah blah. Is this a real thing? Blah 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 blah. It's been successful, like you're talking about, and it looked legit. It really looked legit. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck's going on here? And PayPal. It was a PayPal thing.
PayPal.
And I was like, okay, so somebody's hit my PayPal account. I need to check this out. Blah blah blah. And come to find out, I wasn't even talking to PayPal. It finally hit me. I'm like, these people are not PayPal.
You know what I found out? There's a good red flag in those things.
Yeah.
Because they always tell you they already took the money.
Yeah.
But there'll be a sentence in there, and the thing to click it says, if you don't agree with this, or if you want to contest this, click here.
Yeah.
Then you're in it.
Yeah.
Whatever you get when you click on that, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But you just opened up the superhighway to the inside of your computer.
Yeah.
And somehow, you know what I mean? That's what they want you to do.
Yeah.
So they say, hey, we just took $499 out of account. Thank you for buying this or whatever you bought. And you say, I didn't buy that.
You didn't buy that.
But if this is a mistake, click here.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy that, I didn't buy that.
Mm-hmm.
Click, as soon as you do it, you click, and that's what they're looking for. That's that's the bait, the action is clicking on this.
That's right, that's right. Good information this morning, man.
Yeah, well, it's necessary.
And and you know, it's all part of protecting what you have worked hard to have, you know.
And if they find out what they have, they won't quit until they get it all. They don't care. They don't care if you're left penniless and homeless. They'll move on to the next person and pat themselves on the back for doing it. And like I said, there's going to be a day.
There's going to be a
people.
day.
There's going to be a
A
day for
reckoning.
those people. You don't escape your actions. May
Yeah.
not be justice in this life,
Yeah.
but there will be justice.
Good information this morning. That's right.
Anyway.
And she mentioned Jordan Peterson too. Interesting guy.
Yeah,
it's
I've heard
good
the name
stuff.
before. I think I've seen some things.
Yeah, he's been, his name's been around a while now. Very good.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's see. What other topics do we have?
Well,
Any questions?
you know, I have. Let me think, because I ran across a circumstance just the other day where a family who was had an elderly relative who is going to have to be in some kind of assisted living. They didn't say a nursing home, but it's assisted living type circumstance. But they had some real estate. Of course, it ended up being a real estate question as far as, and they were trying to ask me, and this is what happens, because you and I have talked about this, is if this person just deeds this property, you know, to one of the family members, you know, is that legitimate? Can that be protected? And I'm like, well, look, you know, yeah, this person can deed it to whoever she wants to. That's true. But I don't know what effect that's going to have on where she is. And that's where it's out of my pay grade. You know, you're going to have to talk to somebody.
Well, I'm proud of you for saying, yeah, you can do that. Because a lot of people say, can I do that?
Yeah.
Can I transfer it to somebody else?
Yeah.
The answer is, you do whatever you want with it. You can transfer it to that person.
Yeah.
You can transfer it to the church. You can transfer it to the mailman if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
There's nothing preventing you from transferring it. What we want to talk about is the baggage that goes with that.
That's exactly right.
And you're right. I mean, sure, you can do it, but now what you're saying is, I don't know where she's at. What we're talking about is how's that going to affect her eligibility for
Right.
benefits.
Right.
And it's going to have the eligibility the effect I always talk about, because
Yep.
assisted living is a version of TennCare.
Yep.
TennCare has these choices level 1, 2, and 3. 1 is your full skilled nursing facility.
Yep.
Level 2 is what we call a community-based waiver program. Now, that encompasses assisted living and home and community-based care, like, you know, they
Yeah.
get some money to hire people to come in the house.
Right.
And so, but the eligibility criteria for becoming eligible for assisted living is identical to that of, there's very few differences, almost identical as that of the nursing home.
Okay.
I mean, you still got to be below your $2,000. You still have to have no transfers within the last 60 months. When I say transfers, I'm talking about a transfer for less than market value,
Right.
where you give it away. You know, you
Right.
always hear me talk about gifting stuff away. I use
Right.
the word gift because it implies you don't get anything for it.
Right.
And that's what I'm talking about. If you sell a house, you've got something for it. You got the purchase price.
All right.
You still have the asset. It's just changed posture from the house to a pile of money.
Yeah.
But you've got the asset. So, but if you give it away and don't get anything for it, that will trigger this penalty period. And that's a pretty harsh thing to do. But people get that advice all the time. Oh
Yeah.
man, you're in the nursing home. Your wife's going to head to the nursing home here soon. You need to give your stuff away now.
Yeah.
Give it away. Give it to the kids now.
Yeah.
Exact wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, there are times when that's the thing we do, but it's for a very particular reason.
Yeah.
But it's 99% of the time the wrong thing to do at that late date.
Yeah.
You can give stuff away if you do it early enough.
Right.
I mean, usually long before nursing,
Yeah.
long-term care is even in the picture. You can do that, but doing it at the 11th hour is never a good idea. I mean, let me put it this way: there's the consequences are usually very undesirable.
Yeah.
I often tell people, if I'm planning for somebody that's already in the nursing home, because you're already there, and so we're in the 11th hour, we're in crisis planning, you have this piece of property, real estate. If you give it away, we're going to trigger a penalty period. And I tell them I can deal with the asset itself, the real estate, easier than I can deal with the penalty period.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot I can do. If once the penalty period is imposed, the only thing I can do is cure it, but I got to get the property back. Now,
Yeah.
if we gave it to the kids or somebody and they don't want to give it back, now we got a problem.
Yeah.
If we gave it to one of my asset protection trusts that we control, we can get it back. Because we gave it to the trust, that was the divestment, which we wanted to do.
Right.
But if we need to get it back, we have control over it to unwind the trust and get it back.
Yeah.
I've had situations where somebody gave it to a child. Child borrowed money and built a house on the property. And then they ended up asking for care within that 60-month period, and they got this penalty period, and they said, can you deed the house back to me? And it was a real problem.
Oh, yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
would be.
not only is it a real problem from a financial standpoint, because this person's like, if I don't give it back, they're gonna hammer this person. And if
Right.
I keep it, I'm being greedy or something. It caused a lot of rife within the family, and
Yeah.
I can see it. So, the only thing I can do is cure the penalty by getting the asset back.
Yeah.
But now we got the asset. And
Yeah.
now, but I can deal with the asset easier. I can do something with it to protect it or protect most of it, depending
Okay.
on whether we're married or single, of course.
Yeah.
But we can do something with it easier than dealing with that darn penalty period.
Yeah.
Because once you get that, they just will not pay for a certain length of time.
Right.
The only alternative to them not paying is you private paying at $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
So, so you were right. You know, and again, you want to refer them to somebody that can give them the actual
Yeah.
ins and outs of it.
Yep. Yep.
But you were right saying, yeah, you can give it away. But the question is
Question is
that
what
the
kind of
be-
effect that's
is
gonna
that
have.
the best thing to do?
Yeah.
Because I want to, you know, I think we talked about this last week. I said, remember I said there, I posing the question, is there ever a time that it would be advantageous to give it away?
Yeah.
I think we talked about that last Friday.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, there is. And that is, if it's early enough that you're worried about long-term care, you're not really sick or headed that way, but you're just thinking to yourself, what if, you know, geez, if my wife or I
Yeah.
something happens and we go into care, I sure hate to lose everything.
Right.
And that's the time to give it away, and we're going to give it to a trust, and we're going to wait out the 60 months.
Right.
Then it's, you know, that's a time to give it away because statistically, we're going to clear the 5 years.
Yes.
Statistically. I mean, you can always have a stroke, right? But I'm saying from a statistical standpoint, you're 95% chance of clearing that 5 years.
Yeah.
If you're 89 years old and you already got health problems, well, it's a little more of a wait and see approach, right? Because we don't know.
Right.
But that's the way it works. So, so there is times when giving away is a good planning technique, but it's never a good planning technique if you're already in care or very close to going to it.
Right.
Because now whatever you do is not only going to be in the 60 months, it's going to be way in the 60 months, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be like last week,
Right.
or last month I gave it.
Then you got a whole. Then you got a whole long waiting.
And that's as good. That's as good as doing it 4 years, 11 months, and 29 days ago.
Yeah.
You know, if it's
Yeah.
in the 5 years, they're going to use it against you.
Well, I've got maybe a way off, obscure way to ask you this thing that involved this circumstance.
Probably a good way to end the show.
Yeah, this person's already in some kind of assisted living, has a property, and as far as I know, doesn't owe any money on the property, but
They don't or do?
don't.
Don't,
As
okay.
far as I know, they don't. But there is an extreme tax lien, and to the point where it's about to be taken.
Okay.
So,
I mean, not because it's very large, but because it's not been dealt with.
because it's not been
Okay,
dealt with, could go to a tax sale. So if it does, and a tax sale and a person outside of the whole circumstance buys that property in the tax sale and ends up with that property, then what happens?
Well, they didn't give it away.
No.
And the only thing that could happen, let's back up and go through the fundamentals.
Yeah.
If you've got a
I don't know,
mortgage,
that's
on,
an odd
yeah,
circumstance.
if you've got a mortgage on the property or this tax lien,
Mm-hmm.
okay, if it's let's assume it's a valid tax lien,
Uh-huh.
which they usually are.
Yeah.
So that affects your equity in the property.
Yes.
So even if let's say you just gave it away yourself.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it would be a gift, but the only thing you gave away is what you own.
Yeah.
If you have 100,000, I'm just going to use 100,000 because it's a nice, easy number.
Yeah.
If you have a $100,000 house, which there aren't any, but
No.
you know what I'm saying. $100,000 house, but a $75,000 valid tax lien,
Yeah.
and you sell the house or you give the house away, TennCare will recognize that you've only given away $25,000
I see.
because that's all you own.
I see.
Debt is not something you own.
That's right.
Now, debt is something we can, when we try to deal with people's money, we can always pay off debt, and that's an accepted thing to do. Now, if they take it, okay, if it's a due process taking and stuff like that, it's not yours.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a case like that, even if the tax people took it and sold it, they can't keep if they sell it for more than the tax lien, because when you sell a house,
Yeah.
let's take some numbers. $100,000 house, $50,000 tax lien. If they come and take it,
Uh-huh.
which they will do if you don't settle, then, you know, they don't want the house, they want the money.
Right.
So they'll sell it. Let's just say there's no cost associated with
Yeah.
the auction and everything,
Yeah.
and they sell it.
Right.
And the house goes for 100,000. Let's say
Yeah.
the house is in decent shape and it's worth 100,000. They
Yeah.
get 100,000. They're only entitled to the $50,000 that's due them.
Right.
The owner gets the 50 that's left over.
Okay.
They,
Okay.
you know what I mean? So in that case, their asset hasn't gone anywhere, it just changed posture from the house to whatever.
Okay.
Now, but if there's a deficit, you know, then you still owe them.
They don't know anything.
Well, yeah, but you still owe them.
Yeah.
The creditor.
Right.
You know, still owe the creditor. If the IRS has a $125,000 lien and they sell it for 100, they still want you still owe them $25,000,
Yeah.
and they will come after it.
Yeah.
The house wasn't enough, which is usually the way it works out. There's a deficit.
Pretty amazing.
Because when they sell it, the auction always goes cheap. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, but then that's a bad place to be. But so yeah, if you got to look at what the equity is that they own.
Yeah.
Because if you have a mortgage, you only own what you've made payments for. And of course, it changes every month when you make a payment on a mortgage.
Yeah.
But on a tax lien, well, that changes all the time because they're compounding penalties and interest by the day,
Yeah.
if not by the hour. You know, that's how they do that. So, but you own some of it, and the tax lien consumes the rest of it.
Yeah.
If you just what they'll end up with after the sale, even if it's an involuntary sale, you'll end up with whatever if there's a difference between the sale price and the lien, that's what you'll still have.
Interesting.
But I mean, you won't get denied coverage because they took 75% of your home and now you now can't pay them with it because it was a valid claim.
Interesting stuff.
I mean, it's a valid debt.
That was a literal conversation I had with someone within the past week or so that had this circumstance, and I'm like, okay, you need to consult beyond me.
Notice when you said it, I don't know if you noticed or not, it was a little confusing to me, and I thought, well, let's start with fundamental principles.
Yeah.
And then we got to the end that way.
Yeah.
And I'm confident with that response.
Yeah, that's a good.
But you always deal with the fundamentals. That's why I was saying on these scams, you know, fundamentally, nobody goes to jail for owing money.
No.
This case was jail for embezzling money, which you do go to jail for, but again, and when
Yeah.
somebody says, I've been hired to represent you, and it's not anybody you know.
And you don't know them.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Something's wrong.
I've been hired by you when I get your money.
Yeah. I think my question would have been, well, who hired you?
Yeah, but again, the person's not thinking right, they're scared, all they can think about is going to jail,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. Anyway, but no, that was a good question. Good
Yeah.
question. So,
Fear is a motivating factor.
it most certainly is.
Yes.
And when I talk about estate planning, I sure don't want to prompt that. I mean, I tell people sometimes,
No.
if you don't do anything, this is what's going to happen, and what happens is not at all what you want to have happen.
Right.
I don't do that to scare you into doing something. It's just reality of the situation. You just need to know it.
Yeah, you do need to
You
know.
know, it's like saying, hey, if you don't look both ways before you cross the street, there's a very devastating result that could happen.
Yeah.
I just say it because that's factual.
Right. Right. Exactly
And
right.
if you're in England, you need to look right first instead of looking left first. They have signs up that say that. Do you know that?
No.
Yep. They have
I've not been to England.
at crosswalks.
Yeah.
If you look down at the crosswalk, it's a sign, the word right, R-I-G-H-T, and an arrow pointing right.
Yeah. Interesting.
The lane you're stepping into, they're coming from there. If you go out across the street right now, I guarantee you would look to the left,
I'll
because
look to the left.
that's the lane you're walking into, and as you get halfway across that lane, you'd look at the other one to see if you can keep going.
That's true.
If you do that in England,
That's true.
you can get yourself pulverized because you're looking the wrong
Look
direction.
the wrong way.
So, I mean, at least I give them the credit for putting the signs up.
I
telling you to do that.
wonder how the two countries decided to do that so differently.
I often thought that too. What's the advantage? I mean, a lot of other things. The metric system's been unified globally, right?
Yeah.
They used to have the British, the SAE system with the foot and the pound and
Yeah.
the inch and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were pretty much metric. We still have it, but for the most part, engineering and manufacturing is almost all metric.
Yeah.
So that's all uniform and standardized.
Yeah.
A lot of other things are too.
Yeah.
But that's like, really?
I still prefer the foot and the inch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up with that.
That's because I'm used to that.
Most of my college days as an engineer was
Yeah.
the British systems.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre, but I mean, it's so ingrained into my head.
Yeah.
And now I'm pretty good at converting the two in my head. If I look at something and I say that's a 1/2 inch bolt, I know I can get the right metric wrench for most of the sizes.
Yeah.
I'm not right all the time, but I'll get close.
Be close.
I actually have a table in my garage that
Yeah.
if I get something big, like you're working on the tractor or something like that,
Yeah.
I get something and I measure it, and it's like 1 1/8 or something like that.
Yeah.
I can get close. I know an inch is 25.4 millimeters, And it's a little more than that, so it's gonna be somewhere around a 30 or 32 or something like that. And so I'll grab that one and try it, and it's either bigger, too big, or too small. But I know, and the metric's not an actual fit. Somebody say a half inch, that's a 13 millimeter. It's not the same. 13 is a little bigger than an inch.
Yeah, it's not the same.
I have had bolts where the 13 just felt sloppy, and the inch was nice and tight.
Yeah.
There's a little, but the end 13 will work. Like 9/16 is very close to 14 millimeters, but it's not the same. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. So anyway, we're getting toward the end of the show, and I just want to go back over my seminar, because that's the next thing going on. We have these seminars. We do them about every other month now. And again, we're over here. We were back here in, I want to say, January.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here again, unusually, because, I mentioned before, the venue we use up in Franklin is being revamped. And we're looking for a new one. We haven't found one yet. So in order to just have the seminar where we're normally going to have it, we're going to have it here again at Lawrenceburg, right here at the WLX radio station.
Yes.
Now it's going to be tomorrow. That's Saturday.
That's tomorrow.
Saturday the 17th. Our Saturday seminars are at 10 a.m. And we call it Will's Trust in the Nursing Home, and that's what we talk about. Now, like I said, I try to start them right at 10 as best I can. So if you come in late, you're going to miss something, but that's okay. If you come in late, that's no big deal. Come on to it. If you hadn't like RSVP'd for it, that is not official. Just walk in. It's okay. You can even have a muffin. You can even have some slight refreshment. No big deal. It happens every time. So we anticipate it. So come on if you want. You'll learn some good stuff because I get very good reviews. The people that go and review say this seminar. I went there thinking it was going to be some kind of sales pitch and offer me some food, had to sign on the line or something like that.
Right.
Give you just enough information to maybe kind of want to do something.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all. When I start talking at 10 o'clock, I don't stop for about an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes. And then we open up for questions. It's non-stop info. And the girls call it a fire hose of information.
Yes.
And it kind of needs to be. But anyway, if you want to come to it, if you want to give us an advance warning, call us at Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Elder Law at 931-363-7222. Go to my website, estateplanstand.com, and you can RSVP that way if you want. And if you can't RSVP and decide to come, just pop in. We're at WLX radio station. Don't go to the doors in the front where the radio is. They'll be locked. But if you go to the back of the parking lot, there's a set of double doors. That's where we'll be.
Yeah.
This building used to be a bowling alley. It's a long building, and so it's in the back.
Yeah.
You guys call it the Country Cafe, but there's no signs.
Yeah.
There's just a door there. Just come on in.
Yeah. It's a great venue. It really is.
A great venue.
Very comfortable.
Yeah.
A lot of room, very comfortable. Food, refreshments for you.
Yeah. It'll be fun. You'll enjoy it. And you'll learn things. So, and like as I say, if you got a question about some of the stuff I talk about, and you don't want to call in or something, but if you got a question that you've heard, bring it with you and ask it. Oh, I can encourage you to ask it. I encourage questions. I love the question and answer part. It makes my day to do the question and answers. It makes my day to get a question I never heard before. So we'll call it Stump Stan.
Well, I don't think he can.
No,
I don't think he can.
From time to time.
I don't think he can stop it. Stan Pierchoski, everybody. Pierchoski Estate Law, of course, Bulletproof Estate Planning every Friday here from 8 to 9 on WDXE. And, of course, you can see it on Facebook, YouTube, all those places. Stan, good to see you, my friend.
Always a pleasure, Jeff.
Next time.
Yes, sir.
Broadcast services of Prospect Communications.